Welcome back to Supercar Secrets, brought to you by supercarsmonaco.com. Just before lockdown, I got together with our resident classic and supercar expert, Iain Tyrrell, to pick his brains on more than 30 years of experience. A lot of his time is spent searching for cars on behalf of buyers. And I asked him, what's the most unusual search you've ever been involved in? Turns out it involved both the nobility and the royal family. So let me tug what's left of my forelock and hand over to Iain to tell you the full story.
Iain, I guess you get all kinds of assignments in your role, but what's been the most unusual one that you've undertaken?
Oh gosh. Well, as ever, I'm sort of a bit hamstrung answering a question like this because I do find myself in some very weird and wonderful situations which aren't necessarily for public consumption. But on one occasion I was approached by a senior member of British nobility some years ago, about 5 years ago I'm guessing now, and he honoured me with a visit actually.
Okay. Well, he just turned up one day.
No, he booked a visit.
Okay.
He lives quite near me, so he turned up and he said, actually, I'd like you to find me a particular model. It wasn't Prince Charles, by the way. I'd like to find me a particular model of Aston Martin. So I said, oh yes, very happy to do that. So I travelled to find a lovely two-owner car, a DB6, and I sort of, got the approval and the car was duly procured. Of course, I didn't tell the vendor where the car was going. We did some work on the car, prepared it, delivered it to his estate.
Right.
And he drove the car to Anglesey and Will and Kate, and Will actually practiced driving the car before he drove his father's on his wedding day.
Ah, this was the rehearsal, was it, for the big day?
Yes.
So how did this member of the nobility find you?
It's a small world. Through one thing and another, really. I'm friends with his chief pilot as well, so that was how the introduction came originally. So
when you found a potential car, do you kind of report back to him and say, well, this is it, this is what it looks like, this is what it's cost, this is what
exactly.
you want? Right.
Yeah, I go and vet the car, send some photographs, make sure the car's pucker.
Yeah.
Because obviously I'm protecting everybody's interests. And that was that. Yeah.
And I guess you would go there knowing what was a fair price for the car. Was there an element of negotiation involved to get the...
A little bit, yeah. But the guy wasn't being unrealistic as to his asking price, which helps.
Right.
I do remember actually in another bizarre situation, this time with an Aston Martin DB4, I got a phone call from an existing customer and he said to me, I found a car that I'd like to buy. He had a Ferrari which we had restored for him. The DB4 wasn't yet in the equation till this phone call, and he said, I found an Aston Martin DB4 I'd like you to look at. And I said, okay. He said, would you please go and look at it? I said, yes, fine. He said, you do understand, if it's this particular car, I'd like you to buy it. And I said, well, what about negotiating? And he said, oh, don't bother with that. I just want the car.
And money, no object.
On that occasion, there was such an urgency about it because he was really fired up about this car. I chartered an aircraft to take me to where the car was. And the elderly gentleman owner met me very kindly at the airport with his flat cap and his string-back driving gloves on. And I looked at this Aston Martin and I checked the chassis number and I checked the original build specification, and it was exactly as this chap had thought it was. And I said, well, I have to tell you, I'm instructed to buy the car. I said, would you knock £5,000 off? And he said, oh yes, I'd do that. So I did end up negotiating. But the reason that he wanted this particular car is because his uncle had it new and he used to drive him to school in it.
Oh my goodness, isn't that amazing?
So it was and we ended up restoring the car. He's now taken delivery and is enjoying driving it.
Wow.
And we put it back to its original colour scheme, etc. So I do get some very, very strange requests sometimes, really.
But I guess that's such a powerful emotion, isn't it? Because you're taking him all the way back to his childhood, and it's a family heirloom as far as he's concerned.
Yes. Well, his cousin came to visit when the car was almost finished, and she actually was was in tears seeing it again,
bring
particularly back in its original colour.
Yes, to bring back all those memories of their own upbringing. Wow, fantastic. Iain Tyrrell, thanks very much.
Pleasure.